Good morning, party people. So it is an early morning here in Oklahoma, but you know the old saying, there's no better way to start your day than a little bit of Labview programming. Um, Actually, I don't think anyone said that, but I will go ahead and say that. So as I said before, my name is Jamie Tate, and I am one of the lead learners here for Southern Regional Education Board, and I am honored to get the opportunity to get to teach you guys some of the basics the introduction to Labview software. So we've covered multiple videos. This is actually going to be video number 5. I'm so sorry to tell you guys, but we are just about done here with our tutorial videos. We got one more after this one. So what we covered in our last video, video number 4, was charts and graphs. Being able to show the importance of visualizing our data set for our user, learning the difference between charts and graphs, knowing that charts are kind of the way to see our data set fluctuate data point by data point, and graphs is kind of the way to see the big picture, to see all of our data set all at once for a time period. Okay, and we actually got to connect our data points and kind of see how we have a user control, being able to let the user manipulate and see how that data changes in a graph and in a chart. We actually got a little bit of an introduction to a while loop, how we could get the program to run consistently and continuously until a stop function was put in there. And we noticed that, okay, if we're going to use a chart, it's going to be continuous. It needs to be inside the while loop, but if we want just a big picture at the end, we have to place that outside the graph portion outside of the while loop. So a lot of really cool stuff that we've learned so far. But let's talk about today. Today, what we're going to be talking about is case structures. So the idea of what is a case structure, using a true and a false toggle, and then utilizing more than 2 case options. Again, we're going to be messing around with our Fahrenheit to Celsius converter, and we're going to give the user the option to turn on whether or not they want to convert. They can just pass through data, or they can actually flip a switch and start converting. And the cool thing is we're actually going to utilize more than 2 case options. And we're going to give the user a third option. So if they would like to, we're on the topic of temperature conversion, so let's change it to where if they select conversion 3, they'll actually be converting to Kelvin this time. We're on that chemistry grind of doing all of our data conversions. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. So here we go. All right, so we've got our program pulled up here. So this is our program that allows us to continually draw data sets and convert continuously from Fahrenheit to Celsius. The way that we did that was by creating this while loop right here. And if you remember from our previous video, we actually had to put in a timer here of tell us how many milliseconds to wait before we would draw the next data point. That was in order to get our graph to fluctuate in the way that we wanted, or sorry, our chart to fluctuate in the way that we wanted it to, rather than just having a straight line up and down. So our program, the way that it works currently, is just as we manipulate this control here, it sends out a conversion into our indicator. So it's still a really, really cool program. All right, so let's go ahead and let's try to figure out a way to turn off, if you will, the conversion factor if the user wants to. So the first thing I want to do is I'm gonna need a control in order to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead over here and I'm gonna right click and get my controls palette pulled up, and I'm going to just put in a toggle switch here. Okay, we'll see that it's called a Boolean. So a Boolean is a conditional. And it works off of 2 structures here, either true or false. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm going to just change this and call it ask the user if they want to convert. It's just a little bit bigger. Okay. Just for consistency here, I'm just going to make it the same size as the other ones. Okay. So this is going to be our toggle switch. So this is going to allow the user to switch back and forth of whether or not they want to convert. Okay. And I'm going to move this guy in our block diagram. I'm just going to move it down here to this corner. All right. So how do we get it to go back and forth? All right. So I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to go back to the executive control right here to case structure. And I'm going to just drag and drop right here around our equation. Okay, so now we have a true or a false. Okay, so if it's true right here, it's going to do our equation. But if I click on false here, it's going to do something different. Okay, so we'll come over here to true. All right, so we've got that. Now we need to make a condition if it's false. So if the person has it turned off, all we want to do is just send our data through. Okay. So if they don't want to convert, we just want whatever is sitting over here to be in this indicator. Okay. So the next thing we have to do, so we've got our two conditions set up so far. So if it's true, if the person has it set up and we have it turned on, that's going to convert for them. If it's false, it's just going to send the data right through. Okay. Now we need to hook up our switch. So you'll notice, so I've got my wire spool, and I'm going to connect it to this little green guy right here. So this is kind of a Boolean setup right here. So this is going to be what tells the case structure whether or not it's true or false, and I need to have a switch. Okay. So I think I've got everything hooked up right here. The last thing I kind of want to do, just in case, I want to just go ahead and change this guy so we have the same numbers. And then I'm just going to call this just thermometer for now, because it's not always necessarily going to be Celsius values. So if I go ahead and run, all right, so my condition is always going to be a default off. Okay, so if I have it off here and it's running if it's running continuously, we'll see that data is just going and passing through. That's because we have it set to false currently. Now what happens if I click this? Awesome. Okay, so now it's set to the true value. And as I go through here, it is converting my Fahrenheit to Celsius again. Okay, that's pretty awesome. All right, so now let's go ahead and get rid of this guy. We'll go ahead and stop our program here. Let's say we want to I want to do this right here. So I want to go in and I want to have a numeric control rather than a Boolean control. So as I said before, I want to be able to toggle between more than just two conditions here. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to add a case. That way I have more than just this many. Okay, so I have 0, 1, and add case 2. Okay, so now instead of just toggling back and forth between one switch to another, I'm going to have a few different cases to choose between. So apologize, I'm going to get rid of some of these wires real quick, kind of clean things up a bit. And I'm going to put in a third piece here. So as I told you guys before, we want this to be a Kelvin indicator here. Now we have our default, which is just going to send data through. We have our equation here, which And we also are going to have a new one, which is going to be our Kelvin. So let's go ahead and get our numeric values that we need. You guys remember from chemistry class, the deal for Kelvin is you subtract 32, multiply by 5/9, and then you add 273.15. Give me 1 second, I'll put all of this together. And just as I did in one of the previous videos, I am going to assign a constant value. My 5/9. Remember, in Labview, we can't necessarily build and create. We have to create our own fractions here. So I'm creating that fraction of 5 divided by 9. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my wire spool, start connecting my values here. All right. So what we should be getting here, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to change my scale over here to 300, just in case. So let's see what happens if I try to run this. Okay, so that's good. My first case here is just passing data through. We see we just have from thermometer Fahrenheit just passing through, so this should be a thermometer Fahrenheit. Let's see what happens if I switch it to case number 2. Okay, awesome. So case number 2 or 1 right here. If I switch the toggle to 1, I'm now converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Okay, let's see what happens whenever I change it to number 2 here. Okay, awesome. So I actually didn't set my scale quite high enough. But what I did is um, I now have a third condition here, which is converting our Fahrenheit to Kelvin. Okay, and so we have just more than 2 things to choose from. I could uh, move on and on and on. If I had more structures that I wanted to use, I can continue to add structures here and add on other conversions if I would like to. But that's just kind of a basic understanding of case structures. So we learned how to use both a toggle switch to toggle back and forth in a true-false environment, how to turn on and off a conversion factor by doing that. And then we got to learn how to switch back and forth between more than just 2 conditions. Taking condition 0, 1, and 2 and being able to convert back and forth between Fahrenheit to Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit to Celsius, and then Fahrenheit to Kelvin. So hopefully that was a beneficial video for you guys. Let's see what we got next. Oh, our last video. So whenever you see me next, guys, we'll be talking about for loops and while loops. We'll do both a demonstration for each one of those. We'll be just talking again about that while loop that we put into the Fahrenheit to Celsius generator. And then I'll talk a little bit about a for loop using a random number generator. So hope you guys have a great day and hope to see you guys again.